going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. We're up here again at RPM Motorsports finishing the assembly of my Trailblazer SS project long block. So today what we're going to be doing is the valve train components and the cylinder head installation. So let me show you what I got. So this is a 6-liter iron block LS. This is a stock crank with Texas Speed forged H-beam rods, Wiseco pistons. With all the little tricks we're doing, it should be about 11.5, 11.75 to 1. So this is going in a Trailblazer SS, but it has the C6 oil pan swap, and we're doing a few little other things to make it a little bit more user-friendly. So here are the cylinder heads. These are 243 stock casting heads. The only thing that I've done is I've cut 30 thousandths off of the deck surface to up the compression a little bit. We have Texas Speed 660 springs on here, stock valves, and so on and so forth. So what we're going to do is install our lifters today, and then install our cylinder heads after we check for piston to valve clearance. And then I'll set the intake on this thing and it should be ready to go in the truck. Alright, so first things first, we have our bucket of oil here that the lifters have been soaking in. We need to install those first into our lifter bores, and then we install our lifter trays and retaining bolts. And after that, we'll get all of our surfaces clean. We're going to set one of the heads on and check for piston to valve real quick. We have cylinder 1 at top dead center right now. We have our head gasket on, which is a LS9 head gasket, 51 thousandths thick. I'm going to bolt the head on in just the 4 corners, and I'm just going to snug it down because I don't want to compress the head gasket yet. Once I do that, I'm going to pull the valve springs off cylinder 1 and measure how far both those valves can drop. Now what you have to keep in mind is top dead center isn't where max lift occurs either. So this is like a worst case scenario, what if kind of a thing. So we're going to see how much clearance I have at top dead center max lift. Okay, now this setup isn't perfect, but it's going to give me a roundabout estimate of where my max lift is at top dead center. So the valve is all the way down touching the piston right now, so we'll just count this as it comes up. 1, 2, 3, about 340 thousandths. So what I need to do is some calculations right now and see if that's going to give me enough clearance. Without having a degree wheel and all sorts of fancy tools, this just gives me a kind of a roundabout of where I need to be. Once I reset everything, I was able to get closer to 400 thousandths of max valve lift at top dead center. So where everything takes place in motion, that should give me plenty of piston to valve clearance. And most of that is thanks to the valve reliefs in the pistons. So I'm going to take this head back off, get ready to put the lifters in, and get ready to bolt the heads down. Alright, so this part's going to be a little hard for me to hold the camera and show you how to do it, so I'll explain it real quick. ARP head bolts. You want to clean them and then coat the threads from here to the bottom with ARP lube. The bottom of the head of the bolt with ARP lube, and both sides of the washer with ARP lube. Now you'll notice one side of the washer is flat, the other has a chamfer in it. The chamfer goes against the head of the bolt. Once you get all these cleaned and lubed, we can drop the lifters in and put the heads on. So this is what the bolt should look like when you have it lubricated. Alright, now that all of our cylinder head bolts are prepped, we can drop the lifters in. Okay, so all of our lifters are in and clocked in the right position. So now we just need to throw our lifter trays in and our lifter tray bolts. We'll clean up the surfaces and bolt the heads on. Okay, we have all of our bolts sitting in the holes, and these are going to get torqued in 3 stages, 25, 50, 80. After you do the first pass of 25 on the big ones, you torque the little ones to 25 as well. Finish your torque on the big ones, and then come check your top little guys again. Okay, now that our cylinder heads are torqued down, we can move on to valve train. Alright, I'm back. You will notice the change in clothes. I had to leave yesterday, said goodbye to one of my Packards, so went home, took care of all that. But now we're here back at the shop, and where we left off, getting ready to do valve train stuff. So if you remember, I cut the heads 30 thousandths, so that is going to change our valve train geometry a little bit. So I have my rockers with the trunnion upgrades, some 7400 push rods, which are stock length, my rocker stands and bolts. And what I need to do first, before I really start throwing all these parts at it, is check my lifter preload. So hydraulic lifters in an LS engine have basically a spring to them, which tightens up with oil pressure. So you need to preload these lifters a little bit, which quiets down your valve train and gives a little bit of wiggle room for your rocker arms to move back and forth. Alright, so what I need to do is get my rocker stand on here. The engine's at top dead center number 1, so I'm going to be checking my lifter preload on cylinder number 1. Need to get a couple push rods in here, a couple rockers bolted on, and then I'll show you how we check preload. Alright, so we have our factory length push rod in here, which is 7400, which I'm guessing is going to be a little bit too long, and I'll show you what I mean. So what we need to do is tighten down our rockers to 0 lash. And what that means is you have movement in the rocker arm right now. You want to take this bolt down until you just lose your movement, and that is your 0 lash setting. So you can see we still have a little bit of movement, and right there is 0, so no movement in it. And do the same on this rocker arm. Alright, now what we need to do next is count the number of turns this bolt goes in to see how far it's compressing the lifter. Now, for LS engines, 1 full turn is right at 50 thousandths of preload. I'm looking for between 40 and 60 on this, so we're going to go a little less than 1 full turn to a little more than 1 full turn is where I want to be at. You can see I'm almost 2 full turns, so we know that's too much preload, so we need to find a shorter push rod. Okay, so the next size shorter push rod I have here in stock is a 7300, which I have a feeling is going to be too short, but we're going to try it because we'll know the difference between the 7300 and the 7400. Should tell me exactly what size push rod I need. That's about 3/4 of a turn. Just under 3/4 of a turn on that side. So if 1 full turn is 50 thousandths, I'll calculate what 3/4 of a turn will be. Alright, so I decided to get a little bit more complicated and throw a dial indicator on here. Just to double check and make sure I'm getting the preload that I think I am. So we'll go ahead and set to 0 lash again, which is right there. Set our dial indicator to 0, and we'll see how much preload we get. So that's showing right at 35 thousandths preload, which is where I thought it would be. I'll check again just to make sure. About 36. Okay, I reset up my dial caliper to get a little bit straighter shot at the push rod, and I wanted you guys to be able to see this. So we're at 0 lash right now. And you can see we gained just over 40 thousandths preload. So on these Morel lifters, that's exactly where we want to be. So 7300 push rods is what I'm going to run. Alright, now we can lube up our push rods on the lifter side and install them into the engine. Now we'll lubricate the top of the push rods and the top of the valves and install our rockers. Alright, now that our rocker arms are installed and torqued down, that pretty much does it for the long block assembly. So the plan is to get this thing in the car or in the truck in about a week. So stay tuned for more videos, guys. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram. I post up about this build daily. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.